Hello, and welcome to an episode that talks about social media and online activism Part 2. I'm Swati Singh, a media professional for the last 12 years, specialized in mass communication. I have worked as a media professional with the Hindustan Times, the Indian Express, Career Launchers, the Times of India, etc. And I have also taught digital and social media in various universities and colleges, including the Delhi University. In this continuation episode of social media and online activism, we shall be discussing about the various challenges, advantages and structure of online activism. We shall also learn about the ways and means to propagate the desired agenda or a campaign and ensure its effectiveness. So let's start by discussing the objectives of this episode. The objectives of this lesson are to understand how social media promotes social justice. We would also learn about the best social media strategies for NGO. We would discuss the idea of networked societies. We would try to understand the challenges of online activism. We would try to learn about the opportunity and structural constraints of online activism. So let's start by talking on how social media promotes social justice. Well, the use of social media to uplift voices and stories, create awareness, and builds and strengthen relationship, creates a space for organizations, activists, and citizens to demand justice. Coordinating a community response. As discovered with movements like the Black Lives Matter hashtag and hashtag #MeToo, social media has the opportunity to create online spaces where people come together and find support. Instances such as the Arab Spring and Occupy Wall Street showcases the global effect that can take place through the sharing of ideas online, such as massive gatherings that create unity for a cause. Platforming lived experiences. Many social justice causes work to build equity for minorities and the underrepresented individuals and groups within the society. The stories and struggles of minorities often aren't well known or publicized, but social media can provide a platform to amplify and share them with potentially millions of people across the globe. This exposure helps share lived experiences about racial violence, sexual harassment, and other forms of oppression directly from the underrepresented. Promoting and planning events. As seen with Occupy Wall Street and the Arab Spring and Black Lives Matter movement, social media can create a public awareness around issues in the name of social justice. The ability to reach a larger audiences by sharing information empowers communities to organize in the real world around a cause. Political activist groups use move-on platforms to plan and organize real-world proceedings in rapid response events. MoveOn hosts immediately available information that can set in motion in a series of protests with unified demands by 5 p.m. the next day, following an event or sequence of political happenings. Sharing pictures and videos. Social media can also be used as a tool not only to organize large-scale protests but also to document them. Nearly every social movement in the modern world is documented through social media and news outlets frequently. Scan sites like Twitter to find new information or evocative imagery of current events. One highly publicized example is the Hong Kong protests of 2019, in which protesters have used social media to share pictures and videos of events as they occur, battling for a public and global opinion on the pro-democracy movement. Now let's talk about the usage of signal boosting. Well, through social media provides the kind of opportunity for the voice of an individual to be amplified. In many cases, this voice can still be lost in the noise of the internet. It takes a community utilizing the share feature to gain traction for a post, allowing it to spread to a much wider audience. This process of signal boosting occurs when fellow social media users share a single message. When done well, signal boosting can cause content to go viral. We need to utilize the college population. Young people use social media more often than their older generations. And the trend of use is statistically unchanged since 2018. According to a research from Pew Research Center, the breakdown of platform usage shows that Facebook is the most widely used platform across demographic groups, with roughly 70% of adults saying they use this platform. But that Instagram and Snapchat have an especially strong following among young adults. The research further shows that roughly 3/4 of Facebook users visit the site daily, while 80% of the young adults are using Snapchat and Instagram, not only daily but multiple times in a day. With the available attention of college-age students and the desire of the students for perspective taking in the higher education experience, college campuses are fertile ground for targeted audiences of social justice causes and movements. There are many ways to utilize social media to network, facilitate awareness, and build conversations online. But it is also important to be aware that colleges and employers are also observing online personas. Participants should always be aware of etiquette and professionalism, which can also lead credibility to a conversation or a movement. Now let's talk about the best social media strategies for the non-profit organizations. For NGOs and social justice organizers alike, social media can be a powerful resource for sharing a narrative, sharing information, or building a conversation around an issue. Getting in touch with and building an audience can benefit the organization's mission. The concept of fundraising. A social media fundraising campaign typically works to utilize the diversity of the audiences and focuses attention on one focused goal. This works to earn smaller donations from a wider pool, improving awareness, which can lead to more donations. Utilizing a call to action can augment fundraising efforts. Social media provides a platform to elevate charitable donations and the community to share stories and connect with the donors. Fundraising through social media is best done with a strategic plan that implements not only a goal but also a strategy on how to get there. Valuing the importance of improving awareness and organically growing an audience, creating a funnel from awareness engagement, and finally to conversions is a media strategy that will ensure that views are converting into donations. With the expansion of technology into design and media, having someone on the team with a bachelor's degree in digital media may be the key to designing a campaign. Blending technology and design into an aesthetic that will increase the opportunity for shares and mass communication. Partnering with the influencers. Partnering with a social media influencer who has enough followers to influence public opinion can really boost a message. An individual with larger audiences taking a stance on an issue or promoting a cause may help reach target donor demographics to boost public awareness and perception of nonprofit. Promoting events. Producing an event can build community engagement around a particular topic, such as protests and rallies, fundraising events, education or informative events, or used clothing drives. Promoting an event through social media provides the opportunity to capture the attention of and invite in all the followers, as well as potential to reach out to each follower audience. Utilizing Facebook as a platform to market the event can also help in preparation by providing an estimate of the number of those who are attending. Sharing the stories. Sharing stories does more than provide just information. It also has the opportunity to showcase situations of great need or successes in the movement. Making space for a narrative to be told can let the audience know that there is still work to be done, but also that it is making a difference. In addition to raising awareness, these stories may encourage continued support of the ongoing efforts of the non-profit or campaign. Spreading awareness. For non-profits and social justice campaigns, utilizing social media can spread awareness of the mission, needs, and sometimes even the existence of an issue. Social media can create a platform for sharing stories, narratives, and photos, providing facts and data in a consumable way, which engages an audiences by helping them understand. The work to create awareness helps to build a community around a particular issue. Social media and networking can be done with the focus and dedication, but with the rate at which technology and communication continue to evolve. The help of a professional who has a degree in strategic communication, has expert knowledge in the same field, can drastically improve meeting tangible goals of growth and awareness for a campaign or an NGO. Now let's ask as to how to ensure that the social media activism is truly effective. Well, there are real steps you can take to use your personal and professional social media platforms such as a force for good. The goal should be making sure that your posts have a positive impact offline. Here are some things to make sure of when participating in a digital activism campaign. Firstly, check the source. Social media allows virtually anyone to share any information they want. That can be a good thing and a bad thing too. What often happens on many social media platforms is that the spread of misinformation with regard to the social media activism, an inaccurate or misleading post may be shared thousands of times by well-intentioned people. It is very important to read through all the articles and websites you share. Make sure you research an issue you may be unfamiliar with. Avoid sharing information just because everyone else has done so. Cross-check the information on other platforms before you think of posting it for the public on your own. The next thing to keep in mind is uplift marginalized voices. Well, when sharing resources on social media, be intentional about whom you are sharing the information. It is important to always refer back to the voices of the marginalized. Try to avoid sharing information from celebrities or politicians. Instead, seek out those who are playing active role in grassroots movements. Uplift the voices of those who are more marginalized instead of those in places of privilege. Make sure you look up the writer of an article you want to share or the creator of a video you have watched. Remember, not all information is good information. Also keep in mind, the small things matter. An unfair criticism of social media activism is that the results are insignificant. Some think that digital activism cannot result in any consequential real-world results. However, social media has helped birth robust social and political movements around the world. This summer, millions of dollars were raised to support the racial justice movement, the National Bail Fund, which connects an independent network of organizers across the country. Received an estimated millions of dollars in support of people protesting for Black lives. This would be absolutely impossible without social media. Now let us move on to the networks and the ties. Networks and the ties between actors within a social movement can be understood as being constitutive of collective identities that are constructed and negotiated by repeated activation of the relationships that link individuals or groups. They invoke mutual interaction and sometimes the development of strong ties. In adopting a network perspective is important to ascertain the qualities of the ties between various network nodes. Tie theory has provided the basis for insightful contributions by identifying strong, weak, and latent ties. Weak ties are often seen as primarily instrumental. Strong ties are seen as being emotional and as leading to more frequent exchanges and interactions. The strength of weak ties is understood to lie in the ability of individuals and organizations to draw support from weak tie networks in form of experience, information, and resources. The strength of strong ties tends to be emphasized in the social movement literature and is associated with strong motivation and loyalty. Latent social network ties, used here to indicate ties that are technically possible but not yet activated socially, are particularly relevant when network technologies are involved. The interconnections between actors within networks are a crucial aspect of social movements and activism because they influence their impact and their ability to sustain and coordinate social action. Bennett suggests that Gelrich and Hines' spin model to make sense of the networked movements that are self-reflective, democratic, and deliberative. In their study into religious organizations in the 1960s, Gerlach and Hines identified four main characteristics of a spin model. The first was segmentation, which was fluid and diverse in demands and aims. Polycentric means leaderless and containing a multiplicity of identities. Integration, horizontal structures and the building chains of the equivalence. And lastly, networks, non-hierarchical complex interactions and flow of information. In this model, weak ties turn into strong ties if online interaction and mobilization turns into offline collective actions, potentially creating bonds, collective identities, and a common sense of purpose. Technology is not treated as an end in itself, but is seen as being used strategically to facilitate direct action offline and to integrate mobilization and recruitment strategies with the distribution of information and movement agendas. In this context, the differences and overlaps between online and offline ties are important in the literature. There is a negative perception of weak ties, and online activities may be seen as being less genuine or real than offline activities. Many forms of protest require offline activity and have a need for trusted, strong ties, if only to avoid infiltration by security forces. But there are also many new forms of networked resistance based on the strength of weak ties, mobilizing millions of people who voice their support or rejection of claims. It has also been argued, however, that lazy activism, example slacktivism, sometimes called clicktivism, resonates with citizens who fail to make time in their lives for active activism. These forms of ICT-mediated resistance are a way of bearing witness to the injustice that contributes to collective identity and global awareness. Increased transnationalization is one of the important ways in which social media are impacting on social movements and protests. Transnational advocacy networks predate the internet, but networked technologies are providing new opportunities for activists and their organizations to organize at a transnational level. As a result, transnational networks are becoming virtual, more fluid, more decentralized, and more deinstitutionalized, also more global. It is necessary to distinguish several types of transnationalization. The first is trans-international activism, that is, strongly organized and integrated with staff or members dispersed internationally, and aiming to translate local grassroots issues and interests to the global level of governance. A second is transnational activism, where there is a common frame of reference, such as brand, but local national cells are relatively independent and link up with local struggles with an international or regional agenda, and vice versa. The third type is the global activism, referring to the appropriation and adaptation of transnational discourses and action method in a local context, underpinned movement, spillovers, and the diffusion of ideas and tactics. This is not a new phenomena. A research tarot, for instance, points to the worldwide diffusion of Gandhi's tactic of non-violent direct action and civil disobedience, but asserts that with the growth of the internationalization and global communication, diffusion has both increased and accelerated. Now let's talk about the opportunities and structural constraints. Well, the opportunities network technology provide for activists and social movements have contributed to a techno-optimistic view of the role of social media in the protest movements. But this view is countered in empirical studies that highlight the structural constraints and impediments. Early empirical research on the internet and political participation often concluded that the internet had failed to produce increased political participation, as promised by the techno-optimist scenario. One difficulty is the challenge of reaching beyond those who are already active politically, or at least interested in politics. The internet and social media is a pull medium insofar as citizens need to be informed and interested enough to seek information about the activists and their aims. While network technologies have the potential to reduce certain costs and lower barriers to participation, there are new barriers such as the uneven distribution of access and the need for specific digital skills. Some analysts also warn that movements need to communicate beyond the like-minded and online micro-audiences to achieve real success. State and market control of the networked infrastructure remains strong, and offline power structures are being replicated online. While ICTs have emancipatory potential, they are also instrumental in strengthening the prevailing powers that be. As revelations of the surveillance program PRISM indicates, online surveillance by state agents is rife and is discourse of the net wars and cyber attacks positions hacktivism or online civic disobedience with the framework of cyber terrorism rather than activism. The notion of private communication online is being eroded, and this has consequences for confidential communication among various activists. Social media platforms are also, in addition, commodified spaces, controlled by companies that often act to repress the aims and tactics of certain activist and social movements. When the terms and conditions of their platforms are invoked for sanction, unwanted content, for example, a corporate clampdown and purge occurred with the unannounced removal in April 2011 by Facebook of some 80 political groups that had rallied against the United Kingdom government austerity measures. The justification was that the Facebook profiles are intended to represent individual people only and not a brand, business, group or organization. Despite these constraints, some have strongly argued that digital cultures and social media do provide networked opportunities for activists and social movements and potentially enrich the civic cultures. The dramatic impact of the WikiLeaks, that events in the Arab world, the virtual emergence of the Occupy movement, and the modest success of the e-participation projects attest to this. There are several attempts to link research on the opportunities and constraints of network technologies to the social movements literature using the concepts of opportunity structure, repertoire, and logic of the continuous or contiguous actions to examine the interplay between strategies of agency and the structural constraints of the network technologies. Some experts use the notion of repertoires of contentious actions to support their claims that a new electronic, digital, or networked action repertoire has emerged. Experts like Della Porta and Diana refer to the logic of numbers, damage, and bearing witnesses to the injustice, while Bennett and Siegeberg discuss the logic of connective action. The concept of the opportunity structure is understood as those contextual factors that are beyond the control of a social movement, but which impact and influence the degree of resonance and ultimately its success and the sustainability. Opportunity structures are traditionally situated at an economic and a political level. However, more recently we have seen it being used in the context of discursive opportunity structure and mediation opportunity structures. However, instead of assuming that structures are beyond the control of a movement, the mediation opportunity structure is seen as being more dynamic, co-shaped by movements, activists, and other actors, and operating in a dialectical relationship with structure and agency. Now, let us also discuss how to measure success of online activism. Well, the success of online and digital activism can be difficult to determine. Mary Joyce, founder of DigiActive and Meta Activism projects, states that overall success can be perceived if the activist's initial campaign goal was achieved. However, in many cases of online activism, the goal of online components may have been achieved. Awareness building, mobilization of people, etc., while the overall goal of the campaign was not achieved. This trend leaves the field ripe for argument from critics of online activism to discuss the validity of it. As a movement, the larger scale campaigns get the attention of the media. However, the smaller scale campaigns can be just, effective, and often meet their goals. Examples of this include non-profit organizations using online platforms to raise funds for a cause or a corporation, withdrawing advertising or products as a result of online backlash and petitions. While digital activism has a lot to offer, the savvy campaigner, it also does sometimes have limitations as to how much effective changes it can generate. With this in mind, it is worth considering that all online activity should be coupled with offline activity in order to have a greater impact. Now let's come to the conclusion. Today we learned the importance of using a digital medium in order to propagate a message that can make a big difference to the society and the country, individuals, or an organization. We also talked and learned about the various methods we can deploy to do the same. The idea behind creating a campaign that can create ripples is to ensure that the good wins and the society is able to tread the path of righteousness. Those who are voiceless get a voice and are heard by the opinion makers and the leaders. And now it's time for a quick recap. In today's episode, we talked about how social media helps in creating awareness about important social issues. We also learned about certain strategies we need to deploy to get attention on social media. We also learned about spin model and new terms like clicktivism, global activism, hacktivism, or online civil disobedience, cyber wars, and network societies. In all, we understood the various ways and means by which we can wage a campaign online and get the right kind of attention for the right kind of work. This is all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed the session. We shall be back with more episodes on new media. Till then, take care, farewell, and namaskar.